possible when we explore ideas, challenge thinking, and inspire action. We are here tonight. My name is Talana Simpson. With me is my co-host, Chris Dykes.
Good evening, everybody.
And we have Doug Vining in the studio with us.
Good evening, everybody.
And he's come to talk to us about naked leadership.
Naked.
We're going to get naked in terms of leadership tonight. And it's really an interesting topic because we're saying how complex things are nowadays. And we're wondering, is there a kind of leadership that relates to the complexity?
That's sometimes...
So, there's things that are just happening so fast in our world. Things like accelerating, there's complexity, there's uncertainty, there's so much information coming at us. That sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, I feel overwhelmed most of the time when it comes to this time, when it comes to technology and sort of getting a handle and getting a grip on how to take advantage of it. And
well, that's key to the whole concept of naked leadership, is because of the huge advance in communication technology over the last few decades. Information is just flowing like a river, and this introduces a lot of useful opportunities, but it also introduces a lot of complexity because we're getting instant feedback, we're getting all sorts of sometimes conflicting sources of information, and it's very difficult to deal with that kind of what we call the flat, fast, and furious world.
But also I think some of our actual issues are much more complex than they were centuries ago.
Absolutely.
We're dealing with much because of technology and because we are able to, it's just everything has advanced so much. So Doug, I just wanted to give people some background. You are what they call a futurist. You sit and you look at all the trends and you analyze what's happening, for now and possibly going into the future in order to future scenario planning and to help with strategies. And if this scenario were to happen, this would be a good strategy. And if that scenario, this would be another strategy.
Right. What we do is at Future World, which is the organization I'm part of, we call ourselves gurus, futurists, or Future World Gurus, and we're a small global group. We have people all over the world, and we look at trends and things that are developing mainly from a business perspective, but we obviously look at all sorts of things like economics, technology, political scene, the environment, and so on. And we're continually scanning the World Wide Web and any source of trend information for possible scenarios and how they can impact on business in the future. And we don't predict the future because we say it's impossible to predict the future, but we do look at different scenarios, what the drivers might be for those scenarios, and help organizations, usually big companies, to develop agile strategic plans for the future.
But even within the big organization, there's still a role for individuals to be very aware of what's happening with trends and where the world is going.
Oh, absolutely, and more so all the time, because as we see the world becoming flatter and more connected, this whole idea of everyone being connected is key to this whole concept. As we see individuals being more connected, individuals are now more powerful than ever before, but they are more powerful when they're organized and connected. As disconnected individuals, life was simple, but there wasn't really much you could do. Now, you can create a blog, you can create a Facebook group, you can mobilize people like they did in Tunisia and in Egypt. That's one of the best examples of how connectivity has totally changed the way people can do things and change their lives.
Got an email from a vase the other day who was saying that they are under attack because of the work that they're doing by harnessing people from all over the world and by mobilizing people. And I thought it was it's almost like a war that's going on behind the scenes.
It is. There's a lot of resistance to this open communication, because countries and nation states typically have their boundaries built along a certain amount of control. And we've seen a lot of control in places like China and so on, where they've tried to restrict access to websites or to information. And we even saw people trying to ban BlackBerry during the Arab Spring. So, so there is a lot of natural resistance to open information, but open information tends to gather its own kind of momentum, and it becomes very difficult. Here in South Africa, we've got this whole secrecy bill which everyone is up in arms against, and I'm absolutely against it. I think any attempt to try and control information and make it illegal to tweet something, it just kind of goes against the whole idea of an open, advancing society.
So with that being the background and with all your research then and looking at the trends, you've come up and noticed that there's a very specific form of leadership or style of leadership that is emerging or needed. I'm not sure what the future needs, what you're calling
in the
naked
future, and today already,
leadership.
We see that this flat, fast, furious world that we live in now, you can't rely on old methods. You can't take last year's budget and add 10%. You need a different approach. You need a new paradigm for the way you do strategic planning and leading a company or an organization. And it's got to be much more collective, because it's very difficult for a single charismatic, visionary person to accurately plot a course through this kind of complex world, whereas there's thousands, if not millions, of people out there all assimilating information and forming opinions and providing insights. So if you can, as a leader, have a much more collective approach where you try and listen to everyone who might have a good idea and try and incorporate that into your thinking, that's first prize if you can do it.
So collective.
Is that what you would refer to as naked leadership through the collective?
Well, it's open and collective is part of it, but it's also naked because everything is transparent now. So there's three major sort of mega trends, we call them, that drive this whole naked leadership idea. The first one is the connectivity revolution. We call that Here Comes Everybody, which we borrowed from Clay Shirky. And, with everybody being connected, if you look at mobile phone penetration as well as the internet, about 80% of the world, 80% of the entire world's population is now connected in one way or another.
Sure.
And even if it's only SMS, that's still being connected to a group. That still lets you organize and empower yourself. So that's the first big trend. And, there are wonderful stories to tell about that, not only the Arab Spring and those sort of things, but, in India, for example, more people have access to a cell phone than they have access to a toilet. It's really amazing. And, connectivity has become ubiquitous. There's in China, they reckon the mobile subscriber population is approaching 1 billion, and because it grows so fast in China, that was last month, but this month it's probably already over that. So you're talking about huge numbers of people. There's about 5.6 billion people in the world out of a total of 7 billion who are connected one way or another.
So just to clarify what you're saying about going back to naked leadership, given this trend of I think you said here comes everybody.
Yeah.
When we were talking earlier, it's about being transparent within this space, but it's also making the effort to connect with people using the technology.
Sure.
Available.
The tools, the communication technologies have advanced to such a stage where we've got a whole range of ways we can connect with people and develop associations and use those groupings and to organize ourselves and to improve our opportunities, which people normally do. So being connected is just the start of it, because that leads to conversations and to ideas flowing around, which then puts the people who thought they were in control in a different situation. Because that's the second big mega trend is letting go to grow, which means face up to the fact that you're no longer in control. Big companies who think that they still control the customer, control the market, or even control their own brand are laboring under a delusion, because they don't. The people do. The marketplace controls whether a brand lives or dies and what people say about it. And often what people say about a brand is more important than the product characteristics or its history. It can be a 150-year-old brand, but if people start saying that it's that it's rubbish, and people believe that, well, then that's the end of that.
There's actually an article on your website regarding Nestle, where they tried to prohibit conversation or comments that were made, or they tried to delete them
on Facebook or something.
Yeah. There's something to do with the oil fields and or the tar fields, and what the consequence was that from an environmental perspective.
I don't remember which company it was, but yes, we have seen, we on our website, we comment on these sort of things all the time. And in addition to our weekly mind bullets, which raise various possible scenarios, and we see a lot of companies still grappling with this idea of transparency, because the people are now in charge, because the people can have these conversations. You've got to allow your customers, you've got to allow the market to have their voice, because they'll insist. They have the freedom of choice, and they'll insist on having their say. And you can't control it, but you can influence it. So good marketing campaigns, good communication strategies can influence what people say about your brand, or how people perceive your brand.
And if it's part of that collaboration, that conversation that you have, it's how do you engage with the people that are having a conversation around your brand?
Well, that's the flip side.
That to me is the transparency part.
That's right.
Do you engage, firstly?
Well, before we even get to transparency, the flip side of having all these people connected who now have power is that you've now got the power of the crowd, and you can use these technologies to reach out and to get information. You can get innovative ideas from your own customers or from other people. We've seen lots of open innovation platforms on the internet where people are coming up with innovative new ideas for either for business problems or technology problems, because now they've got thousands of people. They don't have to rely on a lab with a workforce of a dozen researchers. They've got thousands of people over the world who are prepared to put their ideas up for reward, obviously, because you can use this connectivity.
Is that what's it's called then, the global mind? Is that the tapping into a whole lot of minds all over the world, that
in a way,
all those
yes,
minds together can help you be more creative and more innovative?
More commonly called the power of the crowd or open innovation. But what we say in Naked Leadership is that if you can use the reach of the cloud, which is all the new communication technologies, to tap into the power of the crowd, then you can find new opportunities for innovation in your business. You can improve your strategies with this vast resources, which are often for free.
And if we go back to what we were saying earlier about global brands, and we were to compare it to an individual who, in effect, is a brand in their own right, there's no reason why an individual can't get access to that same resource with very similar kind of benefits and results than a big organization would.
Well, this also gives individuals more power. They don't have to rely on a corporate for an employment contract. They can be freelance. They can have many employers. They can have lots of companies who are willing to reward them for their talents, and they can contribute and they can work virtually. So all these new styles of working and so on become enabled through the communication technologies that allow us to communicate so easily.
And hence why there's a new style then of leadership that's growing.
Yes.
Because we need to lead in a different way if people are going to be all over the show, and we need to collaborate more.
That's right. You don't have a hierarchical organization. Well, some still are, but they're increasingly becoming more outmoded and old-fashioned, because organizations are much more organic, much more cloud-like, and much less rigid in the way they're put together. So people from different divisions or whatever can share ideas with people in far-flung areas of the organization and contribute huge value if you enable that, if you have the culture that allows that kind of sharing of ideas. And even from your own customers or even from your competitors, you can sometimes get good ideas for your own business. And, in fact, one of the greatest ways to improve your customers' feeling about your products and your brand is to invite them to help you create the marketing, or to make suggestions for product enhancements and that sort of thing.
And that's that driver you're saying, the let go to grow is letting go control.
Letting go control, because you don't really have it anyway.
With your but also it sounds like with the leadership. So in the past, it's been that very authoritative kind of leader. You will do what I say, and you will be here at this time, and they leave at that time. Whereas now,
the idea of my way or the highway doesn't really work anymore, because
people go.
Exactly, because there are better ways. And so if you're more collective and open to ideas and continually, thinking about new ideas and not trying to sort of focus blindly on a mission and a vision, but being ready to reinvent yourself when you need to, then, this gives you a much better opportunity to have a superior strategy.
There was I think one of your mind bullets was the sort of the club of the Gaddafis and what have you that are now sitting in Switzerland because they've effectively been ousted because they tried to hold on to the power. And from an individual perspective, if we're trying to hold on to power, even within a small organization, there could be quite significant consequences to that.
Absolutely. There are a lot of buzzwords that illustrate this. One of the ones I've heard used by other futurists is they talk about moving away from ego towards an ecosystem of
that's great,
of tapping into other people's talents and ideas. But to get back to the transparency one, this is the sort of third major mega trend, and we call it no place to hide. Because, in a world laid bare by social media where everyone can tweet what you've been doing or what you said yesterday, and everything's on Facebook, there really is no place to hide. If you're a leader or a celebrity or even just an honest Joe who wants to have an influence with other people, you've got to be honest, you've got to be transparent, because if you're not, people will very soon see through you and they won't trust you. And trust in the future is going to be one of the most important assets for a brand or a company or a product.
So for me, then part of the naked leadership, I just think about it, being naked is a very vulnerable state. And that's is this no place to hide. It's being vulnerable.
Accepting your
in such a way that you can be trustworthy, because this person is who they say they are. They have integrity, their word and their action are the same.
That's right, because secrecy destroys trust. You don't trust someone who's not open and honest and is not prepared to talk to you. So conversations and openness, dialogue, creates trust. So we've seen marketing campaigns where, like the Old Spice guy, where they ask the customers to respond with questions, and it was very humorous, but the point is it creates that feeling of trust because you're prepared to engage. Yeah, you're prepared to engage. It's not like deleting the negative comments. It's the very opposite. It's saying, let's see all the comments, open the kimono, let's talk about it, let's have some fun, and that generates trust.
Sure. But then surely, there's so many discussions around, we want privacy on the web. We don't want to expose ourselves. But surely from what you're saying is that if you have nothing to expose, then there should be no issue in being transparent.
Exactly, because there is no place to hide. So if you've got things to hide, they're usually not nice things. And then if you try and hide them and they come out anyway, you're just going to destroy the trust. So if you've made a mistake or you've had some problem with your product, admit it, apologize, and deal with it in a positive way. Engage with people. But trying to hide it away, it's not going to work.
And if you're, as an individual, whether you're an individual as an entrepreneur or an individual of a CEO of the firm, and you're out nightclubbing, snorting coke, and getting drunk,
you have to be aware of these things.
It's transparency again.
It is, and in places like Britain, particularly, there are so many closed-circuit cameras watching everybody all the time that a lot of people aren't aware of it. But there's a camera around every corner, and plus every smartphone is a camera or a webcam. And what people take pictures of with their smartphones, like during the London riots, those pictures don't stay on the phone. They'll go on Facebook and YouTube. And
they get spread so
wasn't
quickly.
Wasn't that
very
also with some of the issues out in the Far East where there was a shutdown in formal communication?
Sure, there's alternative means these days. It's almost impossible to control communication completely. Maybe in North Korea, but that's about the only place.
So is there actually such a thing as privacy anymore? And should there be? Because if you're saying there is no place to hide, surely if we are in integrity and we're doing things that we believe are ethical,
we shouldn't need to hide.
You shouldn't need to hide, because it was a nice test I did. If I'm not going to do something if I didn't want it published on the front page of the newspaper or now on Facebook. So.
Right. I think it's a debatable point. There is obviously a certain need for privacy. Some things are sensitive, like your bank account and all that sort of thing, and your passwords. There's a need for security, so privacy to that extent, just to protect your own assets and so on. But I do think that leaders who are happy to embrace an open, who don't exhibit a great need for privacy in their business dealings,
capacity,
generate a lot more trust. I think I'm maybe talking out of turn, but I think guys like Richard Branson tend to be pretty open about what they think and feel, you know.
Absolutely.
And some people might criticize them for that, but on the other hand, people generally feel kind of warm towards them, that these are honest people, and you know, if that's what they say, they generally mean it. They're sincere. So
and if that maintains through a period of time, so if you're as an outsider who's watching a particular person or a leader or somebody that they respect, and there's a bit of ambiguity in the communications that are coming through, I'm guessing where you're going to lead to the trust being eroded. But if you're sticking to your values and your systems and your integrity, well, then there should never be that ambiguity.
So understanding that if those are the drivers behind naked leadership, here comes everyone, let go to grow, and there's no place to hide, and that this is where we're going in order to deal with the complexity and there's just the problems that we're facing today. We need a much more collaborative, collective kind of leader. And this is what's driving it. Then how can we harness this? How can we use this going forward?
Well, there are lots of ways, but the first step in the road is to understand that this is the new reality. You know, you are no longer in control. Customers are unreasonable. They're well connected. They're well informed. You know, anything you say, they can Google it and see if you're talking rubbish or not. You know, so
see what everyone else says.
And because everything's flat, fast, and furious, customers are unreasonable. They're demanding. But you know, you might not like that, but too bad, because that is the reality. So the first step is to accept this new reality, and then look at ways that you can use this to your advantage. You know, use the technologies to use the power of the crowd to get your customers to help you design your products, to get innovation from unexpected quarters. You know, have an agile approach so that when unexpected things happen, you can take advantage of them instead of always being in crisis mode. And build trust through that culture of openness and transparency.
We've just got Rena online who's asked a question. Well, she said that she's interested in the link between nakedness or transparency, as we've been talking, and ethics. And she's just saying, do you think that people are going to become more honest as individuals and businesses? So are we heading towards a more ethical world?
I think so. Perhaps not in the short term, but I think as transparency exposes those who prefer not to be ethical or who try to, have devious dealings, and those people actually get made extinct by the system because everything becomes transparent, then I think the natural way to preserve yourself is to be more ethical and be more conscious of your impact on society, and to be happy for everyone to know everything you're doing. And you can only be happy with everyone knowing what you're doing if you feel that you're doing ethical things, if you feel that you're behaving in a responsible manner.
And if you make a mistake, it's to be okay with that and to apologize and to own it up to it and then do something to rectify it.
Sure. I mean, no one's perfect. We all make mistakes and we all have our flaws, but
absolutely
to admit them and to deal with them in a positive manner is much
it builds
better.
Trust, as we were talking about. It builds much more trust than to say, no, I'm perfect.
Yeah.
And
there's actually a trend on trendspotting.com called flawsome. You know, instead of being awesome, you can actually be flawsome. You can actually admit that you have flaws, and the customers actually like that and appreciate that and reward you by buying your products, if you like, or liking your brand or whatever.
Just to go back to what Rena was saying, just so we can close it up for her. She's saying, if there's going to be this move towards transparency, is there going to be some kind of backlash or some kind of level of control because of the total nakedness? And perhaps is there access to information about all of us is it sustainable? Can we stand to be laid bare in that way? And actually, are we really happy with everyone knowing everything about us?
Well, some of us might not be happy with it, but unfortunately, in the future, there's going to be very little you can do about it. It's going to become a fact of life. It has for many people. It has become a fact of life. So you have to deal with it. It's not whether you're happy with it or not. You have to accept it. Unless you want to run away and opt out of society
And for me,
divorce yourself from your networks, then you're going to lose out in one way or another.
It's actually a level of personal development to be able to get to the place where you can be flawsome, as you were saying.
And maybe leverage this as a tool.
It can be. It can be a positive thing.
And it is possible to get there. So for me, I think it's very possible, and there isn't. How can you, if you are comfortable and strong within yourself, then I think we were saying earlier, then for me it's an expression of yourself is what you're doing, rather than exposing your vulnerability, something that you need to be fearful of. So yes,
exactly.
To me it's
embracing transparency.
The leaders that are going
as a positive thing.
To make it will be the ones that are in integrity and strong and have a strong ego strength, as we call it in psychological terms, to express themselves and not to feel it as an exposure.
As a threat. So Doug, on a practical level, what are some of the ways that we can harness this power of naked leadership, and as we were talking earlier, the global mind?
All right, well, if we've got time to just touch on one other aspect of this whole idea of sharing information.
I think we started a bit late, so I'm sure it's okay to carry on for a couple of minutes.
There's another concept which we also bring into the whole naked leadership theme, and that's this idea of ideas having sex. Now, it's actually not something that I thought of. It's a chap called Matt Ridley. He's actually got a TED talk on the web about ideas having sex, and it's really about the idea that if you get ideas from one source and ideas from another source, and they get combined and they create a new idea. Yeah, they have intercourse and they mingle and merge and they create a much better, a stronger idea. They evolve genetically into better ideas.
Like a Gestalt theory.
Exactly. Then so then that's a lot of advancement, technological advancement, and just the advancement of civilization has happened through this sharing of ideas. And if you have the most wonderful idea and you keep it locked up in a cupboard, or you sit in a cave and think about this idea all on your own until you die, it'll never go anywhere. It'll never become something powerful. But if you share that idea with someone else who has another idea that can add to that idea, then you get progressive development, advancement. And we've seen this over hundreds of years.
So it's
creating efficiencies, creating marvelous things. Now, these ideas have helped drive all the technology that we take for granted today. Things like smartphones and internet and Twitter and all these sort of things have come from old ideas that have become better ideas. And now these ideas can share and interact much more easily.
So it's taking teamwork on steroids, perhaps.
Absolutely. That's the whole world can be a virtual team in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. So bring that back then to naked leadership.
Well, because ideas can be shared so easily, because you've got the communication technologies, the cloud, and you've got the crowd, all those millions of people who are connected with ideas of their own who can help to improve ideas. This is a kind of a virtuous circle. If you tap into it, if you encourage ideas to be shared either in your organization or even with your customers or even beyond your own industry. It's the old story, who's going to be the next big financial giant? It's not going to be the banks or Visa. It's going to be Apple or Google or something, because ideas can change the way the world works. And if you're cognizant of that and you can make use of some of those technologies, be open to ideas.
They're open to ideas, to not only sharing the ideas but receiving ideas.
Exactly.
It sounds like, and I think the other point you said in helping us harness this concept is to accept that this is the new reality.
Right.
Things have changed.
And use these tools. Don't say, we ban Facebook in our organization because it uses too much bandwidth.
Embrace it.
That's the old control idea. What you should be saying is, get everyone on Facebook, get them to hire new people off Facebook. Get the bright young minds who are happy to share ideas for free on Twitter. Let's make sure we monitor them and find out what they're talking about and use their ideas, because they might have good ideas.
If we can go back then to a practical outcomes or practical ways in which we can work with this. Any ideas? Where would people start?
Well, number one is make sure you're connected. If you refuse to carry a cell phone and you refuse to be on Facebook and Twitter, you're only cutting yourself off from a huge range of opportunities. So number one is be connected. If you're a professional person, get on LinkedIn. Get connected and use those connections. Keep up relationships. Feed people information that you can give them for free, because then they will value you as a connection. Next time around, when you want something, you can get a reciprocal.
Ask for information.
You can
people will
ask
share
them
back.
for
So
questions.
earlier this evening, you referred to me as a techno-cretin.
Well,
and I
because
suppose
you're not
we're
on Twitter.
But if we are actively and strategically building our capacity on Facebook, obviously there's benefits. And I'm guessing if you're somebody like me that has various LinkedIn partners and friends and whatever the case may be, but we don't actively engage with these people, then it's an asset that's being wasted.
It's an opportunity as well. So I know often it's a pain to respond to people and so on, or to follow what people are saying, because they don't always say anything interesting. But if you keep up those connections and you get valued as you might not even be an influencer, but if you get valued as someone who occasionally contributes positively to whatever kind of network you're involved in, then when it's your turn to look for assistance or to look for ideas or to get people to spread the word for you, promote something you're busy with, you've got a positive reaction immediately.
And obviously, what's nice about the internet is you can be strategic about which network you tap into,
Sure.
related to your interest or the area you want to lead in.
Sure.
The area that your business is in.
And that's key to that whole idea of organizing yourself. And I mean, a lot of us get organized in some way. It's very loose, but we have friends on the internet who are total strangers, but we feel that we have a connection with them. We have a relationship, even if we've never met them.
But we
And that relationship is based on mutual value, where that person can contact you for advice or for support or for somewhere to bounce ideas from.
And it's often around that whole idea of sharing ideas.
Yes, getting back to what we were saying earlier about intercourse. So
on that note, I think we need to wrap up.
One last point that just thinking about now is that if we are being proactive around building a network, and you're being strategic in how you build this thing, and if we're not getting caught up into this mundane day-to-day sort of I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm having a glass of water, but you're really contributing into the value, you're going to be building up a base of people, and almost in some way it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the network starts to grow on its own. And if you then start using that on a personal basis with the one-to-one relationships and or the group as a whole, it really does become an enormously powerful tool.
Well, I think, this is what we always do, is we underestimate the power of these things, because there's an old mathematical theory about networks, and that is networks become exponentially more powerful as the number of linkages, number of nodes increase. And that's because they're self-reinforcing. So bigger networks with strong links and lots of weak links, which enable it to reach out far and wide, can actually be very, very powerful indeed. But we often don't see that as a direct linear sort of relationship. But we have, as I say, things like the Arab Spring. We have seen how networks, how organized people can have profound impact on the world as it works. And I just hope the opposition to the e-tolls is as effective.
But then the opposite would be true, where you lose networks because you haven't been authentic and transparent, and where you haven't exposed yourself.
You haven't developed that trust.
You do get extinction. If you don't keep it alive, it can go extinct. Sure.
All right, so time to close up, I think.
What's the best way, one way that people can get hold of you, Doug?
Well, the easiest way is to go to our website, futureworld.org, and you'll see my details there. My Twitter handle is Doug V, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. And
of course,
if you
Google
Doug Vining, the top 10 on me. So
or
top
Naked
10,
Futurist.
wow.
What's the word?
Futurist,
So,
I love that.
So if you want to hear, find out more about Doug, his profiles are also on our blog. And interact with us some more. So we are on Twitter and Facebook as well. And
I'll be on Twitter soon.
There we go. We'd love to hear carry on the conversation around naked leadership and the trends and what it can bring. So
and we look forward to having you third time round at some point in the future.
Back on the show again.
If you enjoyed the show, let us know
very
so we can convince Doug to come back.
Thanks
very much.
guys.
Thanks, guys.